Shanti, everyone. Welcome to the Monday workshop. As always, every Monday we get together to reflect on the journey of our on the spiritual path. As always, it's a unique journey. It's a journey of the soul on the path of this space and time. It's a journey of life experiences. And especially once we come to Baba, especially once we come closer to God, recognizing God. Is it just a faith? Or is it more than that? If it is any scientific thing, so you can just evaluate using our senses and using our physical gadgets to validate. But especially when we are trying to understand something which is non-physical, especially when we are trying to recognize that we ourselves are non-physical. And what we need to do right now, it all becomes very tricky after a point. So one of the ways to get to know God better, one of the ways to get that validation is to listen to somebody else's personal experiences, right? So when we listen to somebody's experience, something within their journey resonates within us, and that invokes something deeper within us. And once we start paying attention to that, you start feeling more beautiful. And then the experience that you have will give you more clarity to some of the concepts. It won't be any more concept or a philosophy. Baba is not just a point, some random dot, but it is everything, right? So how do we get to know that? There is no, or otherwise you'll have to have a blind faith and it may not go far. And we have seen that in last couple of thousands of years. We've been trying that, it didn't work out. So the just having faith will not work out. So here is where we have with us Sister Tanya. She has been with Baba for over a couple of decades, more than a couple of decades, and she's been helping with Baba's service in co-coordinating the Baba's service in Montreal. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Sister Tanya. Most of you might be familiar with her. She has been the face of Americas in Madhuban when we did a program with Mickey and Minnie, and she has been here. I think you've been here to Anubhuti, right, Tanya?
Yes.
Right. Mickey and Minnie there, right? So she's a Pilates. I learned some physical tips that helped me with my back pain. When I was in Madhuban, she was doing some drills that helped me how to sit straight so that you're aligned and you're not putting undue pressure on other parts of the body. So she's a good Pilates teacher and also a scuba diver. If you want any tips, she's going to give us some. But before that, we'll get some tips on spiritual journey. Welcome, Sister Tanya.
Thank you so much, Om Shanti. And I'm really happy to be here with all of you today. Actually, it's not even today anymore for me. It's time for sleep over here. But I'm really happy to be extending the day so that I can meet with all of you. And this journey that you've all embarked on, that I've embarked on some time ago, but I continue to discover new things. It seems like it almost feels, okay, now I'm really on the path. Okay, now I'm really on the path. And I think it's always a good thing to check, to evaluate how things are going. So even this opportunity to meet with you is for me an opportunity to take a look at what have I been doing on this path? How is the journey going? So I guess I can begin, and I'll start perhaps with the title that was chosen for my sharing. And it all sounds quite grand, The Heart of a Heroine, Journey of Transformation. Well, Baba's told us that we're all hero, heroine actors on this path. Actually, we were before we even came to Baba. Our whole life has been this hero or heroine story. And why the heart of a heroine? Well, in actual fact, I actually just really like the way that sounds. But it's not just that. This aspect of the heart, we talk about the soul, and we talk about the soul as this subtle point of light that is, in fact, nothing or no thing. Well, in the process of, trying to consider, making the effort to consider ourselves, consider myself to be a soul, to really inhabit this aspect of a tiny point of almost non-existence, well, what does one do with that? But the idea that the soul is, in fact, or the soul's journey is the journey of a heart, and a very particular kind of heart. A heart that will recognize truth, a heart that yearns for truth, a heart that traveled so far from truth, it completely forgot what it was. But then the pull to that truth is, I think, what pulled us all here. And I remember years ago, what also inspired this idea of the heroine's heart or the hero's heart. Actually, I in fact did a program, Bubba inspired a program called The Heart of a Heroine, sometimes the heart of a hero, to really explore this aspect of this unique heart that is pulled towards truth, but also is longing to be able to express that truth in an unlimited way that I think has been starved for the loss of such a big heart, such a heart that will want to care and share and inspire others. And not being able to do that for a very long time, or having that, if you will, ability to give become so twisted and, if you will, deformed, has been extremely painful. There's an expression that I quite like, this idea of spiritual injury. And perhaps I like it because as someone in the fitness field, as a Pilates instructor, often, I got into this because of injuries to my body, but also you're dealing a lot with injuries to the body. And there's you almost can't separate the connection between how do we heal the body and the fact that we need to heal the soul. We need to heal that heart. And so my journey on this path, although it began with healing my body, it very soon transitioned into recognizing that there was some deep inner healing that had to go on. I think there's something very unique about Brahmins. And as I mentioned that years ago, I came across a wonderful book. Some of you may have come across it as well, called Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. And it was an entire book of praise, which is why the title, which are three, if you will, names or attributive names, praise of Shiva, of God. And so Satyam, the truthful one, Shivam, the benefactor, Sundaram, the beautiful one. And in this book, it's so interesting, drama, destiny, and that's another element of the hero's journey, by the way. Our destiny calls, and we have to answer. Our heart is pulled to fulfill that destiny of the hero, the heroine, the one who saves others by saving themselves. And in this book, I opened it up and I came across this one line. God chooses you because of your heart. And you may feel your heart, I know my heart, I felt like my heart had shrunk to the size of a pea. or approved in the course of my journey. And this caused me a lot of distress. Why these very uncharitable feelings towards others? Why this inability to always have the best thoughts and feelings towards others? It was actually causing me distress to not be able to express benevolence, good feelings, have pure thoughts for others. This was causing me a lot of distress because of the kind of heart that I have, and I think that you all have, that has attracted you to Baba, who is the heart healer. I don't think he's ever been given that title, but he should be. He heals this heart that is walking this path that started out so clean and elevated and beautiful, and then had some wild and crazy adventures and ended up in this physical birth, the one in the body that we would meet Baba, that we would come to this path, this knowledge in. And something that I think is so important for each of us is to recognize, because, by the time we get here, we may really have given up on ourselves and, sort of feel like a hopeless case. Baba's actually even sometimes referred to that, that he is the one who he likes to work with the hopeless cases. And, those who've really been pushed to the edge because of the kind of heart they have. A heart with so much potential for goodness, for love, for kindness. And so, even though I felt like that heart, something very bad had happened to it. It'd been damaged in some way. Deep down inside, I somehow knew that if it could just be fixed, if something could be done to it, that it could be capable of such greatness. Well, I had to wait quite a while for that. But each of us needs to recognize all the things that have happened in this lifetime. I think of all the things that led up to me, recognizing myself, Baba, this journey, this path of Brahman life, that every step, even if it seemed to take me further away from what the heart was longing, even if it, seemed like the worst possible luck, even if it seemed like there's something horribly wrong with me, or even if it seemed completely disconnected with everything, every single aspect was almost essential to get me to that path. And I look especially at the 5 or 6 years before I began, before I came to Baba, because during that time, I actually have a Lokik sister. I don't know if perhaps she's ever met with all of you, but her name is Judy, sometimes known as Minnie Mouse. I'm Mickey, she's Minnie. But she came to Baba earlier, and she had to, because she had to pull me. I had a lot of resistance, so she was the means to get me to finally come. But during that time, yes, I was being fed knowledge in kind of a very subtle way, or actually not so subtle. All the knowledge was there, but, without any pressure. But all of these things were happening. One of them was mentioned in the introduction, and I just have to correct, I'm actually not a professional scuba diver. I am a certified scuba diver, but not professional. But scuba diving was an amazing entry point on the spiritual path. Getting injured as a dancer, which felt like the end of my life, because I had not just the heart of a heroine, but at that time I had the heart of a dancer. Felt like the end of everything, but was essential to move me towards my Brahman life, because it made me start to look at things and to discover things in myself, my many lifetimes, myself, elements that were going to be essential on this journey, essential to being able to do this study of Raja Yoga. When I started scuba diving, I discovered, that to be able to do something that I always thought I could never imagine myself doing, that you would have to have so much training and everything else. But one of the key things it demanded was letting go and trust. And you have to, there's an element of when you scuba dive that when you want to go down into the ocean from the surface, you have to exhale almost all the air out of your lungs. And just keep it just enough and breathe so subtly. Because when you breathe the air out, you become heavier and you start to sink. And once you're deep enough, then it's very easy to stay down there. But that transition to go into the depths of the ocean requires that complete release and stillness. And of course, when I began to practice meditation, soul consciousness, I remembered that and realized, my goodness, it was preparing me. Because when I came to this practice, I thought, I have no idea what I'm doing. But it's like I was being prepared. Getting injured as a dancer made me start to recognize to what degree I had moved away from this caring, loving heart that I have. Because in the year preceding my finally getting some help for the injury I had sustained, I spent a year with that injury, really abusing my body. And then having to wake up one day and realize how violent I could be. And that could seem like a horrific thing. So not only the injury, the loss of doing something I absolutely loved and actually was addicted to, and then having to acknowledge I am an abuser, can seem quite horrific. And yet what it opened up is, I don't want to be that. You can make choices when you have realization. But you can't make any choices if you're not able to see the truth about yourself and be brave enough and courageous enough to face that. So, there's all these things that have happened. Sometimes, we feel we've hit the wall, or, we have to see something in ourselves we don't like. But to be able to see is essential to recognize Baba, to recognize ourselves. We've had that third eye all this time. And a big part of that third eye is to see inwards. And in seeing inwards, we go through the layers of maybe the stuff that isn't so pleasant. But then you go to the heart of yourself. And when you start to see that heart that Baba sees, that Baba recognized and knew that one's mine, then things start to roll, start to unfold easily. So, I invite all of you to take the time to perhaps, look at your life story leading up to becoming a Brahmin. Maybe some of the things, thank goodness that's past, but how all these things were essential to make you ready and open and capable of that recognition and that letting go. And, embracing this life, this incredible fortune, incredible destiny that is Brahman life. So, all of that brought me here, scuba diving, dancing, injuries, even acting. Acting in the shows I had just before becoming a Brahmin, I had so many powerful experiences of, seeing what, for example, because you are working with many people in very, close quarters, spending hours and hours with them, they become your family. And, you have to trust them. You're kind of you're in each other's hands on stage. And so, to see how powerful a pure attitude or a good attitude can be in terms of the quality of relationships and, what is possible in those relationships. So all of these things were happening leading up to beginning my Brahman life. So I see that as kind of the past, but a past that was essential to lead me to this destined, if you will, present. And so I began my journey and really felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And maybe some of you feel that as well. But, at the same time, I was still working as an actor. And, Baba gives us very clear directions. He gives us a timetable. He gives us these elevated directions called Srimat. And of course, the main one, to consider ourselves to be a soul and remember him alone, but to consider ourselves to be a soul and remember him. And everything that happens is almost going to test us to remember that direction and apply it. Because if we do that, if we apply that one simple direction when faced with whatever may be going on or whomever, it is so powerful. And yet, that is the thing we will forget to do. And I remember being in shows, and in one particular show, working with a director who was very challenged in this particular show. And it seemed like he just could not, we felt like we were in trouble. Opening night is coming up and we haven't yet completed everything. And he's a bit lost. And I remember at one particular rehearsal, you start to get influenced by that, what will happen, etc. And you forget that, okay, I'm playing the part of an actor in this show, but my true occupation as a Brahmin is to serve. And I forgot that. And during the course of the day, I just was having these not very helpful thoughts about the director, and everybody else was very, unhappy, discontent. At the end of the day, it felt like the worst rehearsal. And I went home and I did my chart and I gave myself about 10%. But I recognized I forgot to consider myself to be a soul. I forgot Baba. That was the only thing that went wrong today. Not the director, not whatever else. And the next day I was determined I would not forget that. And I went back and I just held on to that. And nothing particularly changed. The director was still kind of struggling and, we got through the day. But everyone, all the other actors in the show felt across the board, what a great rehearsal. It was fascinating. And all these things, and this was very early in Brahmin life, and you can think, you need to be doing this for years to have that kind of impact. In another show, people were telling me things about what they were feeling from me, what they were getting from me. And you can think this is going to take years. This was right at the beginning of my Brahmin life. But it's just simply following Srimat, following the timetable, and having such a love. More than anything, do you love that you're a soul, that you are a subtle point of living energy, that you are unlimited, that you play this extraordinary part throughout the cycle? Do you love that you're this thing that can't even be seen? And then do you love the one who's telling you the story of your extraordinary journey and telling you what you must do now because of what is going to come next? Have you given yourself over to this masterful director and trusting him to guide you into the next steps of your journey, of your role? And this was such a beautiful experience in the beginning of my Brahmin life, because When I was doing a show, often I would be away from any center, no Brahmin company, staying in places that had very interesting atmosphere. Sometimes, I love actors, but sometimes it can be extremely iron-aged company. But the protection of Baba's directions, extraordinary. So, even the challenges that we can face, we can think, why am I in this particular environment as a Brahmin? I had such an interesting roommate at the beginning of my Brahmin life. She loved eating raw garlic, and she had a cat that would jump everywhere, including on the counters in the kitchen. It was just fascinating, and she was extremely unhappy, going through a very challenging time in her life. And you can think, why? But it was so perfect because, it's like it motivated me to take that support from Baba, to take the support of his direction, support of his company. I felt I had to offer everything I prepared before I ate it because of the circumstances. And I was determined, because of the kind of heart Baba reveals to us. I was determined, even though I wanted to run away from the situation, I would not leave that situation except on the best of terms. And, because of following what Baba gives us, the Murlis that guide us through all of these very interesting tests, I was able to do that. So, even in the early days of Brahmin life, there was that opportunity. Now, I can just keep talking. I'm not sure if I meant to, wait for input or just continue on in my...
Yeah, please continue. It's beautiful. Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. So what happens next after you're sort of laying the foundation of, okay, I'm now embarked on, because I think I've always been attracted to the idea of the hero-heroine's journey. I loved reading mythology. I loved reading those stories when I was young. And yet, I felt like something's meant to happen in this life, but I had to wait quite a while. I didn't come to Baba till I was in my mid-30s. And, you're kind of looking around for something special and nothing's happening. But, you get into this, you lay your foundation, and then you just want to jump into service. And that's where, it gets very interesting. Now, why I mention this is because, of course, there are 4 subjects in Raj Yoga. So we come, we get the knowledge, and we create our foundation from that knowledge. And, we may understand very little in the beginning. But one thing I want to perhaps share about that, something that I discovered, is the knowledge reveals itself to us the more we connect with those pure desires of that original, if you will, the eternal soul. The more I practiced soul consciousness, the more the knowledge opened itself to me, the more the knowledge became clear, because everything in the knowledge is there to serve what the soul has lost and wants to get back. Everything. All the knowledge is about my story. And so the more I'm able to position myself in that story, which of course is the soul that is traveling, that is living that story, the more the knowledge is relevant to me, makes sense to me. And so I had the experience, actually, as I mentioned, I had a sister come into knowledge before me. So I was getting even bits of Murli and things like that way before I had, any idea of this path. And it was like Greek. I don't speak Greek, so maybe some of you do, but I don't. So it was like Greek to me. And she would then share insights about it. I'm like, how did she do that? Now, of course, it makes total sense to me, but how did she get that? So when I came and I started, I, would get the Murli, I would hear the Murli, go home, and I would keep a notebook beside me because I would sit and I would practice soul consciousness. And as I would practice soul consciousness, insights would just bubble up out of me from, of course, that knowledge in the soul that is connected to the knowledge that Baba is giving. The knowledge that Baba gives us is to wake up that which has been forgotten. So, cannot underline how essential that practice of soul consciousness is. So then service. Now, we have our seniors. We have our daddies, the original jewels. Actually, we have very few of those now, but when I came into knowledge, there was quite a few. And of course, we've heard, all of us, the stories that they had time. They had time to go from knowledge to yoga, to dharana, before seva, before service. What often happens for us is we come, we get the knowledge, and then we're flung into service. But there's the other two subjects. And it's better, of course, to try and do that transition to get the other two lined up, because they are actually the basis of service, is the yoga, is the knowledge, the yoga, and the dharana. They actually create the service very naturally. But, we didn't have, for example, the 14 years that those original jewels had. But, how would we have done with those 14 years? Again, I trust that our story is so accurate. Because yes, having gone pretty much from knowledge directly into service with some yoga and dharana in there, I won't say there wasn't any happening. Because if you are following Srimad, you are putting the hours of yoga in. In a way, it was the yoga, I think, that gave me the courage to do some of the service that came. But, you get the service, and I think for many of us, that service reveals a lot. It starts to reveal how important that yoga power is. How, it reveals ego. It reveals all the vices just come pouring out in the context of service. And of course, in service, we're interacting with others, interacting with those we're serving, interacting with our service companions. And all of this can, of course, create some very interesting moments in drama. But they're revelations for us. They can be so necessary. One of the biggest tests I had, which, was feeling that, but all I want to do is help the students, and feeling that nobody cared, nobody wanted to help, nobody would give any guidance and support. Of course, I was wrong. I was completely losing it at that point. But, we can get so caught up in something that we forget that once we've lost our spiritual foundation, once we've lost our stage, we can't really be of much use to anyone. But having gone through that test, and after you come out the other side and you realize, wow, I really lost it there, in terms of, forgetting that if you lose soul consciousness, if you aren't having that yoga, then you're no longer really on the path. And what it did was inspired such a pure desire, a deep desire to return to the foundation, to go back into the knowledge, to embody that knowledge, to deepen my practice of yoga, if you will, to get those two other subjects up to par. So that as I continued, I didn't stop the service, but service suddenly became a function of how is the yoga, how is the dharma, having to put more emphasis and fuel there. And I think that just continues even today, that anything that comes up, okay, What do I need to understand? Where am I not applying? Where am I losing that soul conscious stage? Because it can happen subtly. You don't even realize. I feel I've given my life to this, I've given my life to Baba's task. And, even I continue with Lokik work. I have a job, I teach Pilates. But, at every moment, I'm there as an instrument. This is very much the feeling, the consciousness I have. But at the same time, we still have to understand that and be open to and ready to go back to basics, to never assume that, all the subjects are there, we're fine, but we can never go deep enough. We can never fully capture the depth of what it is to be soul, what it is to be soul conscious. I can never really tire of that practice. And maybe what I can do right now, because in a way it's going forward, I think it will just keep deepening and deepening. It will be all that will be left. To be truly in yoga with Baba, I have to be a soul. It is a soul that connects with him, that has that deep relationship with him, that is his instrument, that can be used by him in his task. And, I don't just say that and do that because, I want God to be proud of me and I want to be recognized as a good instrument, but it's that heart. It's that heart that knows I will never be truly fulfilled until I completely embody what Baba will call, that complete instrument. But for me, is simply that I'm whole again, that I'm healthy again, that I'm functioning properly again, that I'm truly living as I was created, if you will, that as I created in the sense of coming into this drama of life, that until I can truly inhabit fully that complete stage and return to that healthy, that purity of being, I will not be satisfied. My heart demands it. And that's why God chose it. And there's another line in that book that I quite like. It's that it is now that the desires of your hearts are to be fulfilled. It is now, and it's every now, every moment we can experience. Baba sometimes refers to it as spiritual intoxication, the spiritual intoxication of having that desire fulfilled, of becoming. That's another line from that book. A Brahmin wants to become something. Brahmin wants to become something. It's not that God wants me to become something, he does, but he's detached. I want to become this for myself, knowing that it will serve everyone. And so I'd like to share with you at this time some of the things that I like to do in this practice of soul consciousness. Is that okay? I don't know if I'm meant to leave time for some questions as well.
So let me just quick announcement. If anyone have any questions, comments, feel free to leave it in the chat and we will get to that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
So yes, I am in this birth. I get to play the part of a Pilates instructor, and that has worked with me, my practice of soul consciousness as well. I feel the two have almost become inseparable, in the sense also that the most intimate relationship we have is with our body. Yeah, we're with it 24/7, and truly until death do we part. And so rather than see the body as something I need to escape from, what I think Pilates has taught me is that, in fact, the body can become the means to reveal this soul that I am, what I can do, what I am doing even right now, each of you. Right now, you are animating that body effortlessly. You are making all the functions going on in it happen effortlessly by being present in it. And you, as subtle as you are, when you think of how gross the body is, the weight, the mass, you are at the other extreme in your subtlety. The body is this mass, this weight, sensations, and you are at the other extreme. So subtle, but the two of you together, it works. Now, we sit in this body in the driver's seat, and I think about that. We sit in the driver's seat and we see through these eyes. Baba has told us that you sit in the center of the forehead, a tiny point of light, and you're seeing through those eyes. When I just think that, and I allow that, if you will, to become a direction of where I need to send my awareness, you, the point of light in the center of the forehead, seeing through the eyes, I bring my awareness there to where that point of knowledge, those ideas pull me. Bring my awareness there and allow that positioning to concentrate me, to concentrate the awareness that I have, that I'm generating. It's almost as if I start to experience this energy that I am in that subtlety that is my seeing. My drishti isn't just something I use to see others. In my drishti, I can experience myself. Tiny point of light, seeing through these eyes, I become centered there. The three eyes position me. And then I sustain that positioning very lightly but firmly. Aware of my body around me and below me. Now I am extremely subtle. How am I connecting to this body? I am spiritual. It is physical. I'm an energy. It is this gross form. How is this connection happening? The body, at its most subtle level, you could say subatomic, is energy. This form is energy, physical energy. I, this spiritual energy, this consciousness, I connect to and animate this body at its most subtle level, naturally. And when I have that understanding, it's like I become detached, but also positioned in relationship to this body, I feel a greater sense of mastery. I feel that I create a sense of release and lightness in my body, because most of the time we hold so much tension in our body. And if I am generating that tension in my body, how is that going to allow me then to experience myself as that lightness? I need to infuse this body with that lightness that I am. I have the awareness, the knowledge of myself. And then I allow myself to feel my connection to this body from that same place of lightness. I feel the body let go. Feel the body become energized with that subtle energy that I am generating at every moment. I feel this power that I have. I feel it shining out through my eyes, infusing the breath, radiating into every particle that is the matter of this body. And I feel the presence of myself growing stronger, become amplified, filling the space of my mind. It's like I've reduced, or if you will, brought my body into a state of subtlety, allowing me to be pulled deeper and deeper into this subtle sense of being. The freedom of the soul. Feeling the quality of energy that I am capable of generating when I am free to do so. So peaceful, so loving. So royal. So sweet, gentle. So powerful, unlimited. And in this state of being, there's only Baba. To become pure spirit. There is only that spiritual reality of of Baba, the home, the eternal. Everything else is temporary. This is the heart that Baba chose. A heart that can know, can recognize, and can embody truth. A heart that can do wonders. A heart that can let go. And become. Om Shanti. So, oh heroes and heroines, God chose you because of your hearts. Make no mistake, God doesn't make any mistakes. So I don't know if there are any questions, anything that needs to be added. I hope you really feel how special you are in this path that makes what can seem very ordinary, extraordinary. I see a hand.
So, Angela, you can try to unmute and then.
I just want to say how much I love your talk. It was really so appropriate because a number of years ago, I was on a journey and I felt like I was missing something in the human part of my life. And I got so frustrated with God that I put on a wedding dress and married God in 2009 at 1:00 in the morning with candles and the wedding song. And I said to God, fine, since you're not going to give me the dream of my life, I'll marry you instead. And it was the best thing I ever did because it taught me the oneness of love. And while I was listening to you and hearing that part, it just so resonated that the seeking on the earth plane is an illusion to me. And the oneness in the ethereal plane of the godliness and bringing that into the physical realm is my truth. And had I not done that in that year, I don't believe I would have come to this empowered place of knowing that truth, that I don't seek the kingdom of heaven anymore. I found it inside of me. And because I found it and I'm mastering more of that, I'm able to have that sense of more wholeness and joy and not feeling I'm missing something anymore. It's more of a celebrating. And I do angel messages. I can see, feel, and hear angels and see when people die go into the light. And that's the purpose. I'm supposed to remind others of the truth of divine love. So when I heard your talk, my heart just really resonated with your beautiful. And I love the third eye. I'll be doing that for a while. So thank you for letting me share and for your beautiful talk. Om Shanti to you.
Thank you, Angel. Yes. You know, it's, I just love practicing being soul conscious. I can never tire of it. But I guess also, to review every now and again why you're here, what it is that you've come here for. In the Murlis, Baba does tell us what he's here for and what he's offering, but it needs to also match why I'm here, and that can take some time to decipher, to unravel all of that. But I think, the second part of that title was A Journey of Transformation. I know I came here to transform. There were some things that I was seeing in the way I was living my life and the kind of person I was, that I did not feel I was completely honoring myself, that I was truly living to my potential in that regard. And as an actor, I would often joke that my biggest role I played off stage, just trying to put out something that you felt would, make you look like you knew what you were doing in the eyes of the world. And to have to play a role in your life is not particularly satisfying. And I think to become free of that, I was looking for the transformation that would allow me to simply be able to embrace myself, to know who that was, and to nurture that and embrace it. And I think that appeals to everyone. One of the things that I think everyone can understand and value is this idea of being authentic. It's one of the most beautiful things, I think, to most of us, is the idea of, when we see authenticity, we find it attractive, that we want to be authentic. And in that authenticity, I find something else very beautiful, and that's consistency. Consistently generous, consistently respectful. To be those things for me, I could see the lack of it in myself. And so these were very, very attractive. And then recognizing this method will get me that. As a dancer, that was what I did. Okay, I want to be able to do that. This method, this teacher will get me that. So I studied with them. I did it. I put the time in. If you know what you want, and you see how the method that's being offered and the teacher who's giving it can achieve that for you, then you step up, you embrace it, you apply yourself. It's really important. There's two halves to this. God doesn't want to make us do anything. Like any good parent, he wants us to be well and happy. But a parent wants their child to excel in what pleases their heart. So I need to really know what that is, take some time to discover what that is, and know that the practice of soul consciousness will actually help me to see that. And then that will empower me to do what I'm being taught. So, to recognize, to take some time to reflect on that. Who am I? What has brought me here? What do I want? And what is Baba offering that is actually connected to what I truly want? And when that connection is clear, things just start to roll. And then whatever is happening, the challenges that come up, when I was a dancer, it just didn't matter. I lived to dance and dance to live. That was the heart that I had at that time. Now I have the heart, yes, perhaps the heart of a heroine, but what is a heroine? Someone who lives up to their potential, someone who fulfills their destiny. What is your destiny? What is your heart pulling you to, pulling from you, pulling you towards? So I feel that is something that is going to emerge for you if it hasn't already. And that is certainly my wish for you.
That's really beautiful how you presented So on that same lines, I was thinking in the matters of heart are not black and white, right? Is not as vivid as the things of the intellect, right? Things of the intellect is like you can logically decipher, and then you say like, oh, this makes sense, and then once it makes sense, it is what it is. So whereas when it comes to the matters of the heart, right? What we used to experience, like in the world, there are some good experiences of the world that we had, and then when we first came, because something appealed to our intellect and then followed through, or for some of us it might have we connected to Baba's heart, right? When Baba talks about purity, how it feels to be pure, and it's like, yeah, that feels good, maybe I should live up to that. And then we start and then that's where the Maya plays tricks. It is not coming black and white, but some mixed feelings, mixed emotions. Is my intuition talking, or is my past life experiences pulling me back to that thing? And and the role of Brahmin family that plays in helping decipher the things of the heart. Like to shine some light around like what daddies lived up to their life, and then how they helped us to feel that spiritual love compared to the worldly love, things like.
Well, I think that's, an interesting, and as you were speaking, it reminded me this element that, everything became separated when we became body conscious. Head and heart. Head and heart are not meant to be separated. And I think that's where the difficulty comes. The head without the heart, that's a problem. The heart without the head, that's craziness. We just we drown in an ocean of emotion. We're overwhelmed. We can be overwhelmed by everything, and if you will, deceived. And I think what's beautiful is this practice of soul consciousness, remembrance, ends that separation. That is our only issue. It's when we can become separated again and again until we're fully healed. And that healing is completed. That's why we're told we can have challenges and tests and things right up till the very end. But all that does, it means that then we will make the effort needed to complete the healing. If there were no challenges, we would just sit around and, have fun. But we wouldn't become powerful. We wouldn't accumulate. We wouldn't get ourselves ready. We wouldn't train for what we have to do in the future. We wouldn't be ready. And so, everything that's coming is always testing us to do one thing. Be soul conscious and remember Baba. One thing. That's why it's called Easy Raj Yoga, by the way. Because there are going to be a multitude of questions, and those questions will make you think that there's a different answer, but there isn't. Do not be deceived. The answer is always the same. Consider yourself to be a soul and remember me. And you will have to do that in a variety of circumstances, situations, and interactions. And they will all pull you to not do that one thing. Now, the more you do it, the more you'll be able to do it. So, sometimes it's better even just to kind of pull away, stop, and focus. Even if it creates a bit of disturbance, whatever. But to keep battling, to keep struggling, to try to, navigate with some kind of spirituality meaning, I try to be good. I try to be nice. I try not to get upset. I try not to react. And I'm just trying, a lot of trying, but no spirituality. Because the stage, and that's going to be always the biggest challenge. Even now after years, you'd think I'd have this down by now. And I can still find, okay, I know I have to be self-conscious. And it's like you feel like you're about 2 years old. It's like, no, I don't want to. I'd rather get upset, or I'd rather think, have a lot of waste thoughts or whatever. But it doesn't last long, because it's just no. Sometimes just saying in your head, no. They had that campaign, Say No to Drugs. Just say no. And I have had some of the most powerful experiences of my Brahmin life, which were usually preceded by me either going into huge panic attack or into anguish or into a complete emotional wreck. Just this quiet no. And my practice of soul consciousness kicked in, and the complete opposite of anxiety and all those other things happened. And just say no. And give it the silent treatment. Just shh in there. And I know you think, but there's so much going on. How can I shh? It's okay. It's going on. And you are in the middle of it all. And all that craziness and noise, making like a statue. And Baba will grab your hand. He will fill you with that power. Allow your power to emerge. It's such a quiet thing you need to do at the moment when Maya and everything and everyone seems to be yelling in your head. Such a quiet, simple, still thing you need to do. Just very quickly, I remember I was giving the course, and it was about the sanskars, and things happen and chaos is going on. The tests come, and I had started this. It was about the sanskars and mind and intellect, and then how we acquire these bad, these habits, and then we react, and all of this stuff happens. And I started it with a diagram. I was drawing, as I was talking. And I started it by putting a little dot on a piece of paper, the soul. And then I had, a circle. The way I do mind, intellect, sanskars is I draw concentric circles. And the first circle is the sanskars, and then the intellect, and then the outer one is the mind. And that's where we're interfacing with the world. And the sanskars are deep inside. And then I had, and I was drawing things, and, by the end of it, it just looked like a war zone. And so one of the students said to me, so, okay, I get it. So, you do something happens from your sanskars, you react, your intellect just is doing nothing. It's weak, it does nothing. And, okay, I get it. So what do you do at that moment? What's the answer? And I started laughing because I looked at my piece of paper and I'm like, the thing you need to do, you can't even see it anymore because there's so much going on. It was completely lost in the chaos, which was that little point that I put on the piece of paper in the beginning. That's what gets lost. Because it's so subtle, we lose it. So we're losing it in the situation, and we lose it. The thing we need to do. So I know it just seems like, but how can it always be that? It is, truly it is. And the more you do this, you'll go through tests, maybe you'll fail them, and afterwards you'll be like, oh, the answer was consider yourself to be a soul. How could I forget that? After the fact, you realize, after the test is over, that was the answer, I forgot. And maybe it will look like different things, because of the different situations. But it is magical and it works. So, of course, you need to practice. Practice, 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 practice. If you only try and do it when you're in the situation, no. You need to build up your spiritual muscle. That tiny, subtle being. And yeah, all the things that are going to test you, all the new things, how people are going to react to perhaps the changes that are happening. I mean, I kept acting. It was crazy, but all of it helped me to prioritize, to decide what mattered to me. And it gave me the opportunity to be able to express it and trust. Often the issues we have with others is through the lack of clarity we have within ourselves about what matters to me and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when that's not clear, then it creates, it comes out in bizarre ways and others react to that. But the more clear we are, this is a beautiful path that will only enhance the relationships we have. That is one thing I have definitely learned. I even remember asking a close family member who was criticizing me, you're this Brahmin now, you don't feel anything, you're detached. And I said, so do you honestly feel our relationship now has suffered, is worse than it was before? Can you honestly say that? And they had to say no. It's better now. But it's people are going to be, having things that they're not going to like, or challenges will come, challenges at work, challenges with family, etc., challenges with the body. You can think, I didn't have all this difficulty before I was a Brahmin. It's like, I don't know. There seemed to be a lot of difficulty before I was a Brahmin. But, perhaps it just became normalized. These might be new difficulties. But now that we have truth, now that we're finally nurturing our pure heart's desires, there's nothing more precious. And you will win out. Victory is guaranteed. And others will only benefit from your presence. So
it's so beautiful how you presented, so when Preet Buddhi Vijayanti, when we said there is love in the intellect, not just
yes,
love
the two
in the
come
intellect.
together. You've got a smart heart and a loving intellect.
That's right. And especially when we listen to that Janki, especially personally for me, that Janki gives a lot of wisdom of the heart, especially how to manage your heart, and a lot of love in your thinking, a lot of benevolence in the way of you perceiving the things or situation or a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. It finishes that separation, and it must. We are meant to function with the head and heart as one. Our heart is intelligent, is wise. It's said that the heart has wisdom, even the physical heart, that it can know that something's going to happen even before we do. And start to react to that, respond to that. So there's this idea that the heart is meant to be wise, not a mess.
That's true. So I like the approach you have taken. When there is truth, that leads to benevolence, and then now the beauty of subtlety. And again, the point is to be the point. So now, if you can...
Well said. Thank you.
So if you can elaborate a little bit on the Sundaram part of being that point, the beauty of subtlety, and if you can guide us into the meditation. Take us to your favorite place in Madhuban, or companies, or your subtle world.
So yes, that beauty of the point. There's nothing more lovely than that subtlety of being that is the soul. How long we have waited. How long I waited to know true beauty, to be set free from those unending desires, futile. To feel the heart soar. To know the full potential of the self, revealed in the mirror of that heart, healed in Baba's light and love. So many beautiful moments on this path. Beautiful moments of receiving knowledge. And one of the most beautiful points, that jewel, I am a soul. God is a soul. And this is the story of the soul. To meet this family of souls, souls who have recognized the beauty of the point that is the self, that is God. And so many beautiful experiences of learning, of connecting to Baba, of remembrance. Of the heart being healed and shining, such beauty, so many qualities. Sharing those in service, trusting that my life now is moving towards the best destination of all. Every step supported by truth. And so many beautiful memories being created as we share this dance of truth. dancing together on the stage in Madhuban at Diwali. Dancing under the stars. In the courtyard of Pandav Bhavan. Dancing in the foggy mountain top of Peace Village with dear Daddy Janki. Dancing. Points of light held in Baba's heart. Dancing in stillness and silence. Shining stars. Going home. To return once again when we will all dance as deities. Pure, elevated, human beings whose hearts are whole and healthy once again. Om Shanti.